And see, I like this part when he's talking about power. On page 51, he says on the second paragraph, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. In fact, the correct quotation is power tends to corrupt and absolute power corrupts absolutely. We can't even read Acton's statement accurately. Our minds are so confused by our conditioning. And that's true. I don't even remember it saying tends to corrupt. I've always just heard power corrupts. It's amazing. Because it's right. You think of someone who's powerful, and you think of a tyrannical king or some sort of dictator.
Yeah. Power tends to corrupt. I've never heard it that way before.
Yeah. So I mean, power doesn't necessarily corrupt. I mean, it's about that person. Someone can have power.
But we've twisted it, so that's how it seems.
Right. It feels like if you have power, you're gonna be a bad person and you're gonna be a dictator, but that's not necessarily true. So that was really good. And then Alexander Hamilton on page 52, he says in the Federalist Papers, what is a power but the ability or faculty of doing a thing? What is the ability to do a thing but the power of employing the means necessary to its execution? So
I kind of need that put in layman's terms for me.
Oh, okay. Well, what he's saying here is, okay, power is pretty much being able to do something.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, picked up my cup. You're doing something. And then what's the ability to do something but the power of employing the means necessary to its execution? I'm just picking up my cup, but all I'm doing is using my muscles and my hands and my joints to do it. It's not that I have anything special or I don't have, it doesn't take a lot of, the powers don't mean magical powers, in other words, like there's nothing really special, I guess, about you. That's what I got from it, that the way he's saying it, he's making it sound like it's nothing.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I guess I can see it like that.
Like excessive, it's nothing that's.
Yeah.
It's just.
Like we tend to view power as something far off and only for those who already have power, but like there are activists and everything who have proved that power can be grasped by normal people.
Right, I think.
If they just go out and organize and fight for it.
If you just do something, then you have that power. Because everyone has power, that's what he's saying. Everyone has power because you can do something, and then by doing that, you reach your goal, So as long as you're doing things, you're acting, and you're trying to reach your goal, you're exerting some sort of power.
Yeah.
And then Pascal, the next sentence says, justice without power is impotent. Power without justice is tyranny. So that was great. So if you have justice without power, so you have laws and things like that, but no power to reinforce it, then what's going to keep people from breaking the laws or going against, what's set forth? And yet, if you just have power and you don't have any laws, there's no justice, there's no fairness behind it all, then that's just tyranny because you're just a dictator, you're just telling them what to do. It's not like like a trial, like we have trials, It's supposed to be fair because of all the different processes you go through.
Can we substitute praxis for power?
Praxis and power?
Is that possible? Because that just jumped into my head as something interesting. Praxis. It came from St. Ignatius's quote, to do a thing well, a man needs power and competence. And that just made me think of praxis, so. And the way they're talking about it, power isn't something evil and unobtainable. And the way Frere talked about it, praxis is not something that's unobtainable.
So maybe
it's something that everyone can have or accomplish if they know how to use it.
So if you have power, you can also have praxis. or if you have praxis, you have power. It's kind of I guess
two-way.
Yeah. That's like an inverse relationship, like they're saying. That makes sense. And the next word is self-interest.
On page 53.
And he talks about how people think of it as selfishness and self-centeredness, and just like altruistic, and the opposite of altruistic and things like that. When pretty much everyone is self-interested, you pretty much have to be to survive.
Self-interest is just acting in interest of self, but it does not necessarily mean that you're solely selfish.
Right. And what if what is good for you is also good for everyone else? Like if I have food and I share with you, then I'm not, it's not, well, I'm hungry, but you're hungry too, and I'm feeding both of us. Like we both have food, so it's good for the both of us, and it's not just self-interest. Although there is self-interest in play.
Yes.
So I think that's what he's saying here.
Like Martin Luther King, he was self-interested, but he wasn't selfish.
Exactly. He wanted the.
Through that self-interest, I guess he was able to empathize with others with the same situation.
Right. So you need self-interest, like what did they say earlier about the ethics? If you're not interested in the issue, you're not gonna agree with the means, Just like the bishop, he didn't agree with the means because he couldn't understand what it was like to be oppressed or discriminated. So if he was self-interested, in it, then he would be more of a help, and he would be helping everyone else too.
Yeah.
So okay, I like that one. And then the last one is the next one is compromise.
Compromise on page 59.
And they think of it as a weakness, vacillation, betrayal of ideals, surrender of moral principles. And I thought about that too. In the old culture, when virginity was a virtue, one referred to a woman's being compromised, regarded as ethically unsavory and ugly. I thought about that too, because I've heard people say that, oh well, what if she's been compromised and things like that, or the mission has been compromised, And it's like, but compromise is a good thing.
Compromise is coming together in agreement to try to work something out, even if you don't agree with each other.
Exactly.
Yeah, it says to the organizer, compromise is a key and beautiful word, and it's always present in the pragmatics of operation, making the deal usually the victory.
Exactly. That's what when I think of compromise, I think of things like that, but I have heard it used in negative, connotations, and it's just
like you're compromising your morals or something.
Exactly. And I'm like, so I'm making my morals agree, and that's a bad thing? It seems like it shouldn't be that negative, and yet people use it like that.
Ego. Page 60.
That's another thing too. Like, just like we said, self-interest, but you're not selfish. You have ego. Well, of course you have ego. Everyone does. Let's see, what is he? He gives a definition of it here. Self-confidence is another word that he uses for it, towards the middle of 16. If he or she does not have that complete self-confidence, or call it ego, that he can win, then the battle is lost before it has even begun. Like self-esteem is another word I think of. Like you have to believe in yourself in order to believe in you believe in your cause, but you have to believe in yourself as well to be able to do it. But that doesn't mean that you think you're the big cheese. You're not the best person out there.
Yeah.
It doesn't may have to make you like a conceited person, just because you have the confidence that you can lead these people, but it's not saying that you're any better than they are.
Ego can be fed by others, not in a negative way, swelling heads.
Yeah.
Gaining confidence from others' inputs, others' reactions to you. To quote an anime, if I may.
Of course.
Don't believe in yourself, believe in me, who believes in you.
And see, and that's too, if someone's feeding your ego, you feed theirs back, and that self-confidence just grows within the group.
And that's a healthy form of feeding each other's ego.
Yeah. It's not I'm better than you, or I'm your superior.
It's like a support network.
Exactly. We can do it. So, it has good connotations. And so he says, pretty much he sums it up here on 61. Ego is a positive conviction and belief in one's ability with no need for egotistical behavior. Makes sense. And then the last one is conflict.
Conflict can be going head to head, but another thing that I see conflict as being is having a sort of attention, but not necessarily going grrr and grrr with nothing actually happening. It's actually conflict is meeting and trying to make something of that tension.
Right.
It could kind of be correlated with compromise.
Exactly, that's what I was thinking too. I mean, you have conflict, and hopefully it will lead to compromise, which will, lead to the change or the meeting of goals, whatever you're trying to do. Because if there's no conflict, if there's some kind of injustice in the world, and no one's facing it, no one's challenging it, then there's never going to be a conflict. And without that conflict, there's never going to be any change. And it'll just go on being unjust.
With no conflict, there can be no praxis.
Exactly.
And it says right at the very end of page 62, if one were to project a democratic way of life in the form of a musical score, its major theme would be the harmony of dissonance. I like that.
Yeah, I do too. That was a really good one.
It's catchy.
You should make that score.
Okay, are we done?
I think so.
Cool. This
awesome.
is a lot easier to get through.
Yes.